Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone. Thank you for attending today's webcast titled BIM for Infrastructure, Moving Beyond the Design Phase. Today's presenter is Scott Hawker, Solutions Engineer with Hagerman & Company. This presentation is being broadcasted in a listen-only mode. You can ask questions by typing them into the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel on the side of your screen, and Scott will address your questions at the end of his presentation. At the end of the broadcast, when you exit GoToWebinar, you'll be prompted to fill out a short 3-question survey. We ask that you take a few moments to provide us with your feedback. Lastly, all attendees will receive a certificate of attendance and a link to the recording of this presentation. Scott, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Okay, thank you, Bradina. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to BIM for Infrastructure, Moving Beyond the Design Phase. I am Scott Hawker. I am a Solutions Engineer for Hagerman & Company. We're going to get started right away. I know everybody's time is important, and we do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend it with us. We're going to talk about, obviously, BIM for Infrastructure. It's already a widely adopted process in the building industry, and the use of BIM for infrastructure projects is actually gaining speed and accelerating as more and more owners and service providers recommend the benefits of utilizing BIM on projects of all types and sizes. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the value of BIM for infrastructure and how Autodesk Solutions can help you build a foundation to substantially improve your methods of project delivery. A lot of words for, hey, let's be more efficient. We're more efficient, that means we're on time. If we're on time, that typically means we're on budget, and that means we're successful. So we're going to talk about that today. Okay. Building for tomorrow. So in just a few decades, the world's going to need to support a population of 9 billion people. And we're going to have to do that economically. We're going to have to do that environmentally. So in order to do that, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to invest in infrastructure. We're going to have to go ahead and ensure that our buildings are efficient and effective, and we're going to have to manage our natural resources a little bit more wisely, depending on how you look at things. For infrastructure folks, typically, we are kind of destroying natural resources for what we do, but we do typically, we cut down trees, we dig into the ground, etc. But we're required to replace that in probably even a better state than the way that it was before. So we still want to manage our natural resources here. The good news is with the availability of advanced modeling, simulation, and our collaboration platforms, we can now plan and prioritize our investments beforehand. That way we can engage stakeholders and the community throughout the process, and that's going to yield better results for us. So the civil engineer in this event is going to play a large part determining how we build tomorrow's civil infrastructure. That includes roads, railways, bridges, sanitation systems, excuse me. So now is a great time to take a step back where you are and ask if the tools and processes that you are currently using are up to the task that we will need to provide in the future. Okay, so what are some of these challenges? Projects are now more complex. Companies face higher expectations. There's more competition. There's less room for error. And the industry must respond to change. Increased levels of competition, higher expectations, cost, schedule, quality, increased scrutiny from investors and even the public. The industry as a whole needs to adapt to a regulatory environment, shifting markets, the need for sustainability. That's a huge word in the industry nowadays, is sustainability and the strategy that we're going to provide. Workforce dynamics, experienced workers are retiring. Younger more digital age employees are taking their place. So the traditional 2D practices and I'll say old school ways of working aren't sufficient enough anymore. There's a growing recognition for the need for transforming how this work gets done, and increasing BIM adoption for infrastructure projects is going to be evident in the shift towards this area. So in our traditional civil engineering processes, we use data sources from different locations and files. Typically, they were static 2D points of view, and they were created by a single user working at a workstation. Okay, the picture that you see there is kind of old school. It looks like they've just got a room, no cubicles. I think we all kind of complain at a time or two that cubicles kind of aren't the best way, but it's better than working in an entire room. But as you can see, the current reality of infrastructure industry today is driving demand for changes in the way that work is traditionally done. Okay, traditional engineering methods focus on creation of the end product or a set of documents. And the challenge that we're seeing for the transportation industry is to align innovative technology with areas where they can have the biggest impact. So whether it's based on the economy, leveraging technology, or conforming to sustainability regulations, all of these point to a common solution, and that's using building information modeling or BIM for infrastructure. Okay, so BIM for infrastructure. It is an intelligent model-based process that provides value across the life cycle of the project. And that is any project that we have. So even though that BIM has become synonymous with building design and more probably adept as far as architects and that type of situation goes, the fact is that the definition and more importantly the value is the same in the building industry as it is for infrastructure sub-segments. By that, BIM involves creating and using intelligent or 3D models to inform and communicate project decisions. So, shifting to BIM is going to improve the way that we plan, design, build, and manage our building, our infrastructure, our utility, or natural resource projects. And as technology continues to evolve, Autodesk is going to provide breakthroughs in this technology. Okay, some of these have already been created, such as the cloud, using mobile apps, and even social support and social media, supporting the advances in our collaboration, our coordination, communication, which is very important always, simulation, optimization, and being able to be mobile so that we can bring the benefits of BIM to the field. Okay. Now, I don't want to bore you with a whole bunch of graphs, but I will bore you with this one. So, to move away from older ways of working, we need to shift the way that projects are going to be executed. Okay. So, it's easy to understand the benefits derived from being able to move through the project life cycle here. Okay, as you can see across the side there, we've got knowledge, and we've got plan, design, build, manage, and the old method is shown in the blue at the bottom, and we want to create better informed decisions, improve coordination, information across the life cycle without having those drops at the different levels at planning, at design, at build, at manage, and you can see that here as far as that graph is concerned. Okay, so we want to create and use data-rich models. So we want to be able to simulate and visualize physical and functional characteristics. We want to be able to coordinate and collaborate more effectively with our stakeholders. Stakeholders are not just clients. they are the public, they are municipalities. They can be anyone who is involved and has a stake in the project. Okay, we want to build smarter processes. So we want to be able to move and change as the project changes. So with today's technology and utilizing the BIM for infrastructure, it's possible to gather, utilize, and share large amounts of data on any given project or portfolio, even if the information itself is limited. Okay. So this is what sets Autodesk Solutions for BIM apart from traditional technologies as we've utilized in the past. So how do we adopt BIM for infrastructure? Well, we already know that it helps improve our decision making, it's going to accelerate our processes, and it's going to improve our long-term performance during the infrastructure creation. So it's not simply about a 3D model. Okay, it's information about a facility. It's highways, it's utility networks. It's forming a reliable basis for decision making during the life cycle of the project. So all of the stakeholders are going to be beneficiaries of BIM. Okay, each of them are going to supply different types of information. Okay, and many share some of the same information but have different uses. So with that, we're going to be able to utilize the information that is most intelligent and most useful to us. Okay. So as we know, infrastructure requires significant investment to build and usually requires some sort of investment to maintain, etc., and ensure the quality of service even after the project has been designed and built. So as you can see, the outcome of utilizing BIM for infrastructure is maintaining consistent data. That's always important. Understanding potential impacts before they occur. Responding to those impacts much quicker than we were able to, if some of you remember drafting on the old tables. Now with technology, we can respond to changes much faster, and we can also engage with bigger groups in larger projects, etc. Well, why would we want to move now? What is driving the need for BIM for infrastructure, and how is Autodesk going to help us move in that direction? Well, right now there's a critical gap in infrastructure investment. There's a $30 million gap that needs to be closed between the demand for infrastructure and the available funding needed. So we've got $60 trillion demand for infrastructure. So we have growth for new infrastructure, infrastructure repairs. The other factor here is growing complexity of the projects, which drives up our costs and our risks. And right now, there are two issues with the fundability. First is the bottleneck in getting projects approved. We all know how hard that can be at times, and sometimes that can take months to years or even decades, depending on the size and severity of the project. Second is the decreased availability of funding. Okay, public funding through tax revenues is not as readily available as it was prior to the economic downturn. So from a big picture perspective here, not closing this gap could result in some dire consequences for our companies and our industry. So whether we come up with a great solution or not, customers are going to continue to struggle with the consequences of these type of issues. So as our technology continues to evolve, Autodesk provides the technology to support the changing requirements of infrastructure projects. And as you can see, there's several different types here that go into our infrastructure model. Some of us know the civil, some of us are understanding of geospatial data, utilities, etc. But there's also the construction aspect. You've got project scheduling, you've got estimation, you've got documentation, things of that nature. All of these types of things go into the infrastructure model. So if we have the ability to simulate and visualize multiple alternatives before we get to the issue in design, we're going to be able to better assist our clients, the public, the investor, with more predictable outcomes. So as we're going to see, BIM's going to be able to help us win more work. Hopefully it's going to garner faster public and agency approval. They tend to move at their own rate as it is, but if we're able to put things in front of them much quicker, they typically will turn them around quicker as well. And we're also going to be able to accelerate our design. So hopefully that's going to help us repeat business and become more profitable. So implementation of BIM for infrastructure is accelerating. Experts predict in the next 2 years we will continue to see the increase that we see here. Okay, this graph is based on a McGraw-Hill presentation showing the acceleration in implementation. Almost 80% of people will be using BIM on at least a quarter of their infrastructure projects. That's pretty significant. Today, almost half of the survey responders that they used are using BIM on at least 25% of their projects. And not only that, but a very high number of users are going to increase over the next 4-year period. They're expecting it to jump between 7 and 31%. So that's a pretty good chunk of folks starting to move toward utilizing BIM for infrastructure. So as we can see, this is already happening globally. It's not just happening here. It's happening in most other places around the world. So BIM adoption does vary from country, but the consistent theme is growing awareness, exploration, use, and adoption of the BIM process during the infrastructure project. So if we look at some of the BIM adoptions, we can see that levels of the BIM adoption in North America have surged from 28% in 2007 to 71% in 2012. We spoke about that on the previous slide. If you'll see, the UK has seen a 39% adoption rate in 2013 versus 13% in 2010. That's increasing exponentially. So what is driving the global adoption? Well, typically government mandates, owner preferences, industry trends, they're all driving these levels of BIM adoption. Okay. In the UK, it's the construction industry. In the United States, major projects, some of them that are using federal monies require spatial programs like BIM as a minimum requirement. Private sectors, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, United States Air Force, U.S. Coast Guard, some transportation departments. So we're starting to utilize and deliver BIM implementation and marketing based upon the mandate for these projects. So with better access to our information and the ability to use that information, the infrastructure for BIM is going to develop and deliver benefits throughout the project life cycle. So in our planning area, so we're going to start with the planning phase here. So in this phase, in order to evaluate alternatives, you need to aggregate and collect the data. Most of the time, This is going to come from different folks or different subs. It's going to be probably different coordinate projections, and they're going to be different levels of precision here. So we're going to be needing to add as much detail as possible so that we can make informed decisions moving forward. The bottom line here is that we need to be able to identify problems relating to capacity, safety. We need to evaluate all the alternatives for a project, how it impacts the site, etc. And then what that will allow us to do is develop plans and exhibits to help the community and the stakeholders understand the potential impact on them and also the surrounding environment. We also need to clearly communicate alternatives to the agencies that will sign off on their portion of the approval process. Utilizing 3D models helps to create a more clear, more concise documentation of how this is going to impact the project and also the stakeholders. So we're able to better aggregate data from various sources. Okay, we have one model for wetlands, for FEMA, for soils, endangered species. I've done work in Florida, and the gopher tortoise is a big endangered species there. You have to be very careful developing sites where they are, so that comes into play there, cultural, historic, and more. And with this, we're able to take all these different types of data and create one rich model, which will help us to minimize any types of conversion. It'll help us minimize data loss. That's very important. It'll help us to minimize different copies of this data. And it's also going to help us minimize stale data. We're going to know which is the best one and which is the most recent. And we're going to be able to utilize that in a way that will help us plan. So after our planning phase, we move into preliminary design. So we want to investigate and evaluate our project options. So we also want to do that in the context of the environment, and then that way we're able to navigate through different scenarios in real time. If we do that in real time, we're able to provide interactive feedback sessions with those municipalities, the clients, etc. So we're more effectively able to collaborate and communicate across large teams by sharing these models. It's going to allow us to improve public engagement, help us to gather feedback. It's going to aid in the speed of the approval process like we've talked about in the past. So what these are going to do is they're going to advance our design, our simulation, and analysis here. Okay. So in that way, we're going to be able to see early design concepts, expand the collaboration. We're going to gain access to more integrated and specialized analysis and design tools. So we're going to be able to engineer these projects hopefully more efficiently and complete the process of finding out our issues before we get to breaking ground. And that's when it really costs us money, because if folks are waiting around for you to make changes, there's machinery standing, there are people standing, and time is money, as we all know. So preliminary design and evaluating our alternatives. So what we've got here is just a quick video of a road improvement plan that wants to go and expand to 4 lanes, as well as creating a new river crossing. Okay, so there were several alternatives, and we're going to see those here, that resulted in 17 different road alternatives. They included tunnels, interchanges, and 8 different designs for the new bridge across the river. Okay, so in this manner, in utilizing this, this company was able to quickly and cost effectively present all of its alternatives in the context of the existing environment. Now we have to step back and take into consideration how long this would take to accomplish what they did without model-based workflows and the modern technology that was employed. this would take quite a while. It would involve computer 2D drafting. It would involve renderings of some sort, either being uploaded or actually done manually. So in this way, we really cut down on the time it would take to evaluate all the alternatives that were available to us here. So let's move on to the design phase. So when we're designing our civil infrastructure, the focus has been on creating the necessary deliverables, whether those were exhibits or whether they were actual construction documents or plan sets. So with BIM, engineers are going to be able to design with the data in mind, not the documentation. And it's important to understand that plan sets are now a byproduct of the design. So the most important focus with BIM for infrastructure is the design process, not producing the plan set. Although the plan set is still very important, we're able to focus on what's really driving the project at this time. So in this way, we can capitalize on more predictable relationships between our design elements. We're going to have dynamic updates. This is going to help rework. It's going to accommodate any type of late-stage design changes. Our analysis and our simulations are integrated with the design, so more alternatives can be evaluated in order to help arrive at the best solution, not just the solution that works. So one example benefit of using model-based approach is that important elements are tied together so that any changes to one particular element is going to cause automatic updates to each other element that relates to it. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing a civil engineering drawing. There's alignments in there. There are profiles. There are corridors, etc. And we're able to see, utilizing these 4 viewports for example purposes, is that when one change happens, it's going to update all of the other viewports and all of the other design information here. So we've gotten through the planning phase, we've gotten through the design phase, and we're going into the building phase. BIM processes are going to help construct projects more reliably. Okay, we are going to be able to utilize 3D models for automated machine guidance. A lot of folks are now utilizing that out in the field. They're able to utilize the 3D model. That means there's going to be less chance of error. We all know that coordinating with different disciplines is very important. And being able to bring together those information from the different design teams is going to help us to identify clashes between electrical, water, sanitary, storm, any type of telecommunications. We want to be able to make sure that we have these taken care of before we move any dirt so that design changes can be made before it impacts the construction schedule. Design information can also be used to simulate construction, as we talked about a little bit earlier in the presentation. So in order to optimize the equipment, identify scheduling problems that can occur, we want to be able to utilize the BIM for infrastructure to get our project from point A to point B, which is completely constructed and usable. So Autodesk Solutions, more efficient workflows, more accurate communication to help us address the project's complexity, greater predictability, using simulations to optimize our design. It's going to help improve any kind of problems that we may see during the life cycle of the project. This is going to help us improve our project outcomes. Okay, so we can get the stakeholders the information they need as soon as possible, utilizing the cloud, utilizing any mobile platforms, etc., so they can respond quickly to any type of changes, thereby making more informed decision making. So we're going to be able to deliver higher quality designs faster with the ability to evaluate more what-if scenarios earlier in the design process. This is going to help us improve the understanding of the project impact and performance. We're going to be more able to communicate design intent. We've all had those types of projects where people just don't understand what's going on and why, and some of the questions that pertain. And we're going to be able to utilize time and material savings. We're going to be able to minimize construction errors because we're going to be more coordinated. We're going to have more consistent data. We're going to be able to perform more accurate quantity takeoffs, etc. And we're also going to be able to deliver those models to contractors so that they can utilize it for their automated machine guidance. Now, what's involved in implementing BIM for infrastructure? Well, what you want to do is you want to have some type of framework and utilize a pilot project. Okay? The first thing you need to discuss and talk about is vision. What will this process look like? What will it achieve for the organization? And what's going to be the evolution? And what is it going to look like at various stages? So it's not an easy task to go to someone who is in leadership who is not a user, okay, because they're not aware of what we typically do on a regular basis a lot of the times. So sometimes they're only aware of the benefits and not really understanding and knowing the tasks involved to set up, implement, and train staff. So what can we relate to our leadership team regarding the implementation of BIM? Well, what we want to do is we want to bridge that gap. So we want to be able to have any actions from the executives and any type of BIM leadership in this situation. We want to be able to utilize assessments, training, standards development, etc., so that we can take executive vision to an everyday user reality. So high-profile communication demonstrates to our stakeholders our commitment. Hopefully, it's going to help us inject energy into the transformation. We also need to talk about training and education. So adoption of any type of BIM technology requires new skill sets for our users and new ways of working. That's going to demand an investment in training to ensure you have the right people on the right project. You've got contracts and legal obligations. So BIM tools and their processes can impact contractual relationship between owners and their delivery partners. BIM collaboration is a significant change to traditional processes, which we've talked about earlier. And this should be addressed up front with your stakeholders. You've got compliance. Project reviews permit BIM teams to evaluate and measure the effectiveness of the technology, the standards, and the processes in the pilot project. Utilizing this, you can catch errors, you can improve your standards and processes excuse me, before you actually move ahead on a new project. You can also measure the maturity of the BIM process. What key indicators are going to be used to specify your progress towards your goals and the milestones that you're going to lay out here. You're also going to have incremental change. So with the groundwork done, the project you select should be a simple, repeatable project, something that you have done before. You don't want to use new software on a type of project that you have never done before. Also, by picking a project that you have done before, you can take the software, the current software, and compare it to the processes that were utilized in the past and see if your results matched up. That's one thing that I do recommend. That way you can see how the software works and what kind of results you expect before you actually go into it on a project. Now it's time to pick that project. Okay? You're going to want to include measurements at key stages because you want to understand how BIM has either improved or where areas need further development. It's going to be fluid. Okay? Now, a couple of tips on picking a pilot project. Obviously, you want to do one that you've done before. You're going to want to do one that is similar, that you have utilized. You don't want to say, well, we've done one similar to this, but I think we're going to go off and do some pump station design even though we've never done that before. It's recommended that the initial pilot project team does not work on traditional 2D CAD projects and BIM projects simultaneously. This could be counterproductive to learning the new system. They are trying to unlearn what they have learned and utilize the BIM information for our new project. Okay, so where are you currently? There is a BIM workbook that is available. I'm going to ask Berdina to load that back up to the web page for this webinar. It is already on our website for another presentation, and that's one you're going to see at the end of my presentation here. But you're going to be able to download this. Okay, so it's going to provide a framework that architects, engineers, surveyors, civil, contractors, and owners can reference in creating and deploying BIM processes and best practices. The workbook's going to be divided into two sections. You've got an organizational BIM plan and you have a project BIM plan. The organizational BIM plan helps companies implement BIM at the organizational level. I never would have expected that. And the project BIM obviously is going to help the project teams on the pilot project. Okay. So within our organizational BIM, you're going to see a series of forms to assist you in gathering your information on your current workflow and your processes. What are your current tools? What's your focus? What tools are you using at the different phases? You've got planning tools. You want to outline the models that your organization creates in a typical project. What models are you using, if any? Excuse me. What types of analysis tools do you plan on implementing? Is it visualization, clash detection, quantification? Is it energy or lead related? Is it facility management? Okay. Is it visualization in this regard? Utilizing those 3D models and using those type of tools to create a visualization process. What are the current skills, such as 2D CAD design? So you want to fill in current skills by listing personnel type, the number of employees that you have for each type, and their average skill level. This is going to help you determine your staff's current skill set and any kind of necessary training that you may need in the future. Required skills, similar to current skills, but we want to fill in the types of desired skills by personnel type, the number of employees again, that we are going to need moving forward. What type of training plan or requirements do we have? What needs to happen? Don't forget to take into account what hardware would be required. Traditional 2D drafting requires different types of computers and hardware than 3D and vertical softwares do. Hagerman offers a variety of training options. We have standard in-house training, we have custom training, at our location or yours. And let's shift to the deployment plan. So the project team can use the deployment plan as a working template for establishing your project standards and alignments early in a project. It's going to help your team define roles and responsibilities. You're going to be able to streamline communications and plan more efficiently and effectively. It's going to help us reduce costs as well as any type of concerns we have regarding quality, scope, schedules, etc. over all phases of construction. So once we've done this front-end legwork, it's time to drill down and actually pick a project. Select an appropriate project. Make sure it's approved by your decision makers because this is a team effort. It's important that everyone buys in. So we've got our outline phases. We're going to estimate start dates and who's involved. That's very important. We want to keep track of these milestones. It's really the only way that we can keep track of our successes and the challenges that we will face in the future. We want to identify planned models. What models are we going to create? What's the naming convention? What's going to be the content of the model? What phase will the model be delivered? Okay? Make sure you take care in filling these out. Detail your analysis plans. What type of analysis do we want to perform? Visualization, structural, clash detection, etc. Are there any special instructions associated with the analysis? Are there any types of other things to consider? Is there any design review, any as-built, any type of additional BIM coordination or file naming convention? Well, what's your next step? Well, you're going to want to schedule a planning meeting with your stakeholders. Okay? Hagerman is available to assist you in your planning phases. Now, if you're still in the civil implementation planning phase, we are here to assist you. We provide process assessment, implementation plans, training, and planning for that first project. So once you've done a couple of projects, you can use the maturity assessment to measure your current level of BIM and plan accordingly for your next project. This spreadsheet will take you through a variety of topics, descriptions, and levels so that you can evaluate and plan and target the next goals and milestones for any additional projects that you are going to have. So once again, Autodesk's BIM Solutions, we're able to plan more efficiently, manage, build, and design. We're more accurate, quicker reaction, and accessibility to more stakeholders in a quicker amount of time. So we're going to be able to better understand the project, communicate risk, intent, design alternatives. We're going to be more consistent. If we're more consistent, we should be more efficient. We're going to be able to respond more quickly to change. And the BIM solutions here. We've got intelligent-based designs. We've got conceptual designs, integrated simulation and analysis. Autodesk provides award-winning visualization. Some of the animated movies that we're seeing that are more prevalent these days are actually created on Autodesk software. We've got improvements in workflows and interoperability as well as collaboration and data management. Utilizing Autodesk products provide us with leading 3D design and engineering software. Since the introduction of AutoCAD more than 25 years ago, Autodesk has been setting the standard for design and engineering. Autodesk is recognized as a BIM leader in the community and the industry. And along with the training, support, and global community of experienced users, we can help you improve the way that you work and help you to gain the competitive advantage. Right now, that BIM Deployment Workbook is located here. I am going to ask that we upload it to the event location for this webinar, so you should be able to see that there. Once again, we do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend with us, and I do thank you and appreciate your time. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Bradina, and let's answer some questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Scott. This concludes this concludes Scott's presentation. If you have any questions, you may go ahead and ask them now by typing them in the questions panel on the side of your screen. We're going to keep this open for a few more moments, but if you think of a question after we close the session, you can reply to the confirmation or reminder email that you receive from GoToWebinar, and we'll route those to the appropriate parties to get your questions answered. Also, as a reminder, you will be receiving an email containing a link to the recording of today's presentation. And if you could take a few moments to answer the short survey that will appear on your screen after you close the session, we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you for attending and have a great day.